a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships, the greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the small planet Naboo. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, to settle the conflict. What is up, everyone? You know, we've been hyping and hyping and hyping for months now. It seems like this Bombad Buildup, and all of a sudden here we are, the road to Episode 9, the Rise of Skywalker. Here at the beginning of the saga, Episode 1, the Phantom Menace, with my good buddy Scotty. How you doing?
Yep. Dude, I'm doing great. I'm so excited. You have no idea.
This is not our typical episode. We're going to get right into it. And to do that, I need to bring in our very special guest, an esteemed member of the One and Only Club, Mr. Pete Fletzer. How you doing, Pete?
Hello, gentlemen. How's it going?
Oh, it is fantastic. So good to be here with you tonight.
I am so psyched about this, and I know that you just said that you can't believe it's here already. And I remember when you guys asked me when I was on just a couple weeks ago, and October 27th felt so far away. And then you reminded me, and I was psyched that we're finally getting to talk about what has become definitely one of my favorite of the Star Wars movies, which is very strange for me to say.
That's amazing. No, it's weird. It's like in less than, 15 or 14 days from when we air this, The Mandalorian's going to drop. 14 days. Are you kidding me? And then
I'm not ready.
I think we'll be 6 weeks away just 6 weeks away from when that drops till we get The Rise of Skywalker. We are living in incredible times to be a Star Wars fan, and we're so happy everyone's here to join us, especially Pete. But guys, this is it. This is the Bombad Buildup. We will have a different episode every Tuesday dealing with each saga film. So next week we're going to have the girls with a Force Toast on to talk about Attack of the Clones. So super, super stoked for that. But anyway, let's stick to today. We are talking about the infamous Phantom Menace. Guys, I got to ask you, maybe Pete first. Pete, what does this movie mean to you overall? This whole movie, what does it mean to you?
Well, to me personally, it was an important movie for me because it was when I was sort of in the thick of doing the work that I was doing for Star Wars Galaxy magazine. It was an exciting time for me as I was getting to have access to a guy who was a mentor and became a friend of mine, Steve Sansweet. Awesome. Not that I'm dropping names. I got to go to the premiere, so it was a really exciting time. And quite honestly, though, the movie itself initially hit me in a less than positive way. And as I was just alluding to before, I've since gone back, and it's really become, strangely, one of my favorite of all the Star Wars movies. And, part of it has to do with the fact that I've become sort of a student of this movie with my crazy fan fiction, but also just because I now have a sense as to what its role is in this larger, 42-year saga.
Great point. I mean, especially bringing it up the fact that it was one of those things you might have had a little bit of animosity towards at first and not really understand it. But I can almost say the same exact thing. Not that I didn't like it when it came out. I just always took it, up until about 5 years ago. I always thought it was kind of a silly movie, and right now, really reflecting on it, it's not like at all. And that's kind of what I have to say about it. It's one of the first ones I saw in theaters, and it was perfect for my age. I was like 5 when it came out, so it was like I was the demographic. But it's funny because even still, when I watch it, I still feel like I'm the demographic, which is interesting. I can't figure it out. But Jerry, what about you? What does it mean to you?
Well, just real quick on what you were saying there about how you still feel like you're the demographic. That's what's so great about these films, is that they are made to appeal to younger audiences, but there's so many nuggets and kernels of truth and just I don't know, amazing deep themes of
Yes.
that it really just it still hits you even when you're here. I am 32. 20 years ago, I went to see the Phantom Menace as a 12-year-old, and I mean, I love it just as much now, if not more.
Yeah.
Especially for its place in the saga. For me, this movie, I don't know, like, we said we don't want to talk about the negativity and stuff because this is, we're trying to keep it positive and story focused, but I've always loved this movie. It's always just really been important to me because this is the beginning of the story. And there's just, I don't know, there's so many good themes. There's so many, it just gets richer. It's a fine wine, baby. It just gets older to me. So, although with our watch along, you guys, if you watched my Periscope with my neighbor, we definitely we hit that point in our brain where the CG is now looking dated, and
Yeah.
it happened a couple weeks
It
ago
does.
for me because I remember watching it a couple weeks ago, going like, "This still looks pretty good." Then I watched it Friday. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?"
There's some scenes that look amazing, and then there's some scenes like when you first meet Jar Jar, it's rough. But when he's in the bongo, it actually looks amazing.
Oh, yeah,
like,
that's
it
a
looks like it
fantastic
could be done
sequence
today.
still. Right.
And
But it's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that now because the last time I watched it, I noticed that Ewan and Liam at times aren't really looking directly in the right spot when they're talking to Jar Jar.
No.
But again, I mean, if to spin it to the positive without even trying, it was the first time this had ever been done, and that's one of the amazing things about this film is, people do critique it and call it a little wooden and too CG heavy, and they blame George, but the reality is nobody had ever directed a movie like this before,
Ever.
and so
Right.
nobody had done it. So of course you're going to start in a little bit of a challenging spot, and again, in hindsight, it's amazing what was done at 20 years ago now.
It's wild. The one sequence, and I'll tell anyone if you ever want to test your surround sound system, the podcast. I mean, the podcast.
Play this
pod race.
podcast and test your surround sound.
Exactly. That's it. Bombadcast.
Play now. This
We
is
have
podcasting.
5.1.
Yes.
We have a 5.1 testing format. No, the pod race scene is such a solid scene. It literally, I kind of watched it from a different lens. I thought about it from a perspective like a 1960s movie. Like how they had a race sequence. It was George did that so well, and how sound tells more of the story. There's no music to the very end. It's just, it's, and I guess if we can go on to the next part, gushing over why we love this movie, 100% the biggest reason was the music. I mean, the music is so good, and it's honestly, funny thing is I grew up, having it be that Star Wars was my Star Wars, but like every video game that followed it all used Phantom Menace music.
Yeah.
So like Bounty Hunter,
audiobooks
Phantom Menace
too.
music.
It's all over the
Audiobooks.
audiobooks.
Exactly. And then like Battlefront game, all those great LucasArts games all did Phantom Menace music, which like totally, I never realized it subconsciously must have made me fall more in love with that movie too. But yeah,
It's interesting because there used to be was it the Disney Infinity game, which
yeah.
I played over and over and over with my son, and I realized that the I guess whatever the march is, or the Trade Federation or whatever, the is everywhere, and that's such a great piece, and it was never heard again, and that we have to hear that again in episode 9. I hope something, at least a taste of it.
Funny enough, you say that, and there's one song that I 1,000% am convinced they're going to play in episode 9, but I'll get into that later.
Awesome. Okay.
It'll be like, oh wait, that is very true. But Jerry, is there anything you just love about this movie? Is there like you can put on a Star Wars movie and there's one thing that really kind of stands out to you? And I know the pod race is for me. That is just such a great scene. What about you?
Well, I know that when I was doing that Periscope, I had left to go do something for a second. I had to run back when I heard the pod race fanfare start up.
Yeah.
I was like, oh
It's
no, I don't
so
want to miss the
good.
pod race. The pod race is really good. There's so many. I was noticing even today. I watched through it again with my adorable Padawan. I have a picture. Maybe I'll post on Twitter of her sitting. We built a tent. We built a fort in the living room,
Nice.
of course, because I'm dad of the year, all that stuff. And then it's her eating peanut butter crackers with apple juice just entranced with the Phantom Menace. She loves
Wow.
she loves it, and it's just it really just got me right there. And so I
Oh
had
man.
moments like that this weekend where I was like, "Yep, she's mine." That and we went trick or treating in our downtown here, where in Michigan where we live. They had like a trick or treating event for little kids, and her and her cousin were Anna and Elsa. But there's this guy had to be with the 501st, but his wife was Princess Leia, very legit Princess Leia.
Yeah.
He was the legit Darth Vader. Like, I mean, the light up.
Ooh, wow.
I mean, heavy cape, everything. It was legit, and even spoke through a speaker. But my little girl wanted to go up and see Darth Vader. That was pretty
Okay.
good. But you know why I love this movie? It's not just because she loves it. It's because we see baby Darth Vader, and
It's true.
make it connect. But anyway, no, I just had to gush about my 2-year-old. Sorry, guys. But I don't know, man. I'm just gonna have to. We're gonna have to get into it because I've got so much I want to gush about, Scotty. The sequence, all the sequences we've mentioned so far. You guys know I love the opening action with the Jedi fighting down the hallway. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
Oh yeah.
Fighting down the hallway. Just that from the time the droids arrive at that door, and you know it opens, and then the smoke. You see the lightsabers. I just love that. That just
Okay.
such an underrated sequence.
So what I had planned for this, and our listeners as well, you'll get in on it. We have our first main thing we want to discuss is what is the state of the galaxy? What is the galaxy like? And I have something written up, if you don't mind me reading, gentlemen. Is that okay with you?
Please do.
All right.
Read it away.
Peace. So it's peace. There's not really any big conflict going on. So the Jedi, as we know, they ensure peace and justice for all of the Republic, which has stood for 1,000 years at this point. They were the Knights of the Republic, and they didn't fight for anyone. They didn't fight. They were just guardians. They were there for protectors. They were warriors of peace. And these Jedi, these two of them, were actually sent to negotiate term agreements to the Trade Federation above the sovereign planet of Naboo. When they arrived, they were escorted into a room, and then that Jedi transport was destroyed. It was just blown up, and the Jedi were almost killed by some poisonous gas. And the Trade Federation at that point was going to, and they had a plan to release the droid army on the capital of Naboo. And this small conflict, to me, will obviously have very big consequences. That was all planned behind one in particular person, and we'll get into that later. But Jerry, bring it up, man. Tell us about that one scene, the very first scene we see with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
What's not to love about it? I mean, I was just getting into it, like just the whole thing about like it's our first interaction with how those battle droids are too. They're a little goofy, right? You know, they got the check it out, Corporal Roger, Roger, and all that.
They're kind of stormtroopery though, in their own
It's
right.
very stormtroopery. One might even say they might be better shots.
Yes,
because they're shooting at Jedi, and the Jedi are just deflecting the blasts. So, but what do you expect?
Yes.
Droids? But no, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's lightsaber introduction, it was very different than compared to what was in the original trilogy, and that's one thing I really love about it because. For one thing, we've never seen two lightsabers lit up at the same time on screen until that point. Have you guys realized that?
Good point.
Well,
Besides
no, never
the
mind.
battles, the duels.
I just made a bad because a duel. So let me just rewind that. Okay. You never seen a blue and a green though like that.
That's true.
Seen two good guys fighting.
Light side. Mm-hmm.
And so that was cool to see that different. It was just a different visual that was very cool to me.
Well, and it was
Those lightsabers igniting the gas.
Yes,
Just really, really kind of a cool reveal.
they kind of played to that the fact that they are in a gaseous area. You know what I mean? Like they didn't. You know, it actually lit up the room, which is kind of interesting because I think it was the first time they had the technology to do anything like that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
because if I'm not mistaken, all the other lightsabers were kind of just painted on the film, right?
Right.
Back in the 80s.
That's right. Yeah.
So to have it actually be a living effect is very interesting.
Right. And it made the world feel more lived in too. That's one of the best things about this movie. The original trilogy, the world felt big, but Phantom Menace opened it even more.
Yeah.
And it brought up so much. It just brought the realism to a different level.
Totally.
It also introduced a completely different side of the galaxy, right? Because we had seen only the lived-in side of the galaxy in the first 3 films in the 70s and 80s, and this introduced us to almost that Buck Rogers sort of Flash Gordon looking universe where everything was kind of clean and futuristic and
Art Deco,
and kind of shiny and Art Deco. Yeah, and so that was a great introduction as well. Even on that ship, just the way that room is just set up in such a way that the meeting room sleek. It feels very sleek and very this sort of 1930s sci-fi. So.
It's awesome, and with that being said, you see these. It's kind of funny because a lot of what I have written right now is like the parallels between this one and that one, and you see a much more triumphant, galaxy in regards to like how grand and big everything is, and that might attribute just to the special effects, but it also attributes to the state of mind the galaxy's in versus what it's in the OG trilogy. Everything's super gritty and it's very dark, and it's actually kind of a nice change of pace, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Totally.
But because I'd imagine for some people it might have scared them back, but a lot of the same elements are still there. Like there's one thing I have mentioned here. It's like you see where Obi-Wan kind of learns his tricks from, versus what he does in the original trilogy. Like Qui-Gon, he like all he does is wave his hand and he tricks Boss Nass completely into giving them the ship, into giving them Jar Jar, into giving them exactly what they want when they get there. And it's like you can kind of see where Obi-Wan did the same exact thing to the stormtrooper in the in A New Hope. It's kind of cool to see how George writes this in, And like the Force is much different in this than it was before. Much different. They kind of give it a scientific, backdrop. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, no, I the thing that I also loved about the opening and throughout the entire film was, and again, when I've gone back and watched it and become really a big fan of this film is, I think one of the reasons I've come to love this movie is because of Qui-Gon. Because to me, Qui-Gon is what a Jedi should be. Right?
Yes, it's exactly what I wrote down in my notes.
Yeah, he's the perfect the perfect encapsulation of what I always thought a Jedi would be. Very stoic, but very powerful. Very in command, but very calm and extremely talented with the lightsaber and with his. He knows which Force skill to pull on and all those things. So to me, he is the ultimate Jedi, and I miss him in all 9 movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Assuming he's not in 9.
That's what I'm really, man. I'm really holding out hope for a Qui-Gon appearance. He's in canon now. He has appeared to Obi-Wan Kenobi. You guys,
Yep.
In what is it?
A master and apprentice in a certain point of view.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know. I feel like hey man, all bets are off after that trailer in 9. So.
Yeah.
So maybe what might be the ghost and all that. So,
dude,
but yeah,
that's the thing.
I agree, Pete. Qui-Gon. The way I put it the other night was Qui-Gon is like the most Jedi to ever Jedi.
He's the Jediest ever.
He is. He's the real deal. He is 100% what we all thought they would be and what they should be. And he was pretty much the only one of the Jedi of that time to really be like that if you think about it. The other ones are kind of stoic and cool, but they're the ones that are falling for the tricks and fall for the cloudiness of the dark side. He kind of sees through that.
Yep.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. You notice that Qui-Gon kind of doesn't go against the Order, but he kind of just knows how to work it. And like his Force powers, especially, there's one part where they're in the bongo and he calms down Jar Jar, and I don't think we've really seen that since. Like Jar Jar's losing, he's like, "What you said me thinking we're gonna be in trouble?" And then like the lights come on and he's screaming, "Oh no, no!" And all Qui-Gon does is just puts his hand, kind of a Spock,
Vulcan.
whatever.
Yeah.
Vulcan, yeah. Kind of just calms him down, and Jar Jar's eyes like go inward, and he's like, "Oh," it's like it's kind of cool. I mean, if I was a Jedi and I saw someone else having a panic attack, I'd be like, "All right, let's chill you out a little bit,"
Relax.
And it really makes you think. It really makes you think what else he could have done, And you got a good point there, man. He's the most Jedi of Jedi, and he kind of just did what he wanted to do, and he has no regard for the council. They're like, we're, you know, at one point Obi-Wan's like, well, they're not going to let you be on the council if you're going to be like this. And he's like, well, you know, that's okay. You don't have to be on the council.
Qui-Gon didn't serve the Jedi Council. He served the light side. That's all he served. And
good point.
I really respect about him.
Okay. Well, no, I respect that 100%. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
oh no, I actually didn't have anywhere else to go.
Well, it's one thing I want to parallel with too. If you think about it, we've got Qui-Gon who's so, you know, powerful and almost kind of mystical in the Force. Then you've got someone like Darth Sidious is introduced into this story, and I don't know if you were like this, Pete, because I was not. I was way too young to be aware of it. But I remember reading some I guess some messaging boards that were from the 90s, and and a big speculation was that is this Darth Sidious Palpatine? You know, and that's a. I mean, I don't know if you ever had if you ever questioned it or anything. I don't know if it was very obvious to you, but like, it's interesting to see now because you see this character that's undermining everything the Jedi's doing, and he's doing it in such a suave way that the Jedi are convinced that, you know, it's something else. No, I can't. You know, they're not even thinking about Palpatine. And he's been around the whole entire prequel trilogy. But what do you think of that, man?
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that because I never once for a second thought he was anybody other than Palpatine, simply because we knew it was Ian. Well, we knew it was Ian McDiarmid, and we knew that Ian McDiarmid was the Emperor. We didn't have a name in the other three movies or the first three movies. But what I love about it was I like you guys, I've been watching all these movies in preparation for episode 9, but I've been watching it with my 10-year-old daughter. And she, until, spoiler alert, Revenge of the Sith, when he is revealed, that was the big reveal for my daughter because from a pop culture standpoint, everybody knows that Darth Vader is Luke's father. Of course. So that's gone for her. However, in that scene, I know this isn't the Revenge of the Sith conversation, but in the scene when he gives it up in his office, my daughter turns to me. She goes, "I knew there was something not right about that guy." So she got it. So I think it's a really cool thing. But more directly to what you're saying. So when I started really studying this film for my book, to me it became very clear that this movie is. I think a lot of people go into it thinking it's Anakin's movie. And I don't believe it is. This is Palpatine's movie. This is about this, which is why I am so glad to see him coming back in episode 9 in whatever form that takes, because this is really, it's Anakin's story. Sure, you know, it's the Skywalker Saga, but this has all been set up by Palpatine from step one.
All the way.
And frankly, I have my own sort of personal theory that it might not have been Palpatine. It may have been Plagueis or something else, which is why when you said before, Jerry, that you know this, it's the beginning of the story that starts with Palpatine. I really don't know. Yes, I know that that's all we know, but I don't know. It started with something that influenced Sidious to become Sidious. Now, whether it's truly Sidious or something else, we don't know yet, right?
Great point, because I have right here, because the first question that went into my head, because I never really watched this from an analytical point of view, but you got to think, how did the Trade Federation even get involved with Sidious? Like, how was anyone even aware of this character or this power or this person? Did they know he was a Sith? Did they know that he had any influence? Because at this point, he's just a senator from Naboo, which is also something I find very interesting, because no one really thinks about this. What a better way to start your subtle invasion of the galaxy than starting with your own planet. Like,
it totally takes away any suspicion.
Yeah, because I mean, like, to me, he knows the infrastructure. He knows the easiest way to invade it. He knows the Gungans won't get involved. So he thinks to himself, well, how about this? I will play this card over here, and I know that no one's going to stop me, which is where it gets interesting, because Padme comes up and she starts being the one to kind of like go against him, and then that's another way he has to handle it. And then we see that these Jedi get more involved, and he thought they were killed. And it's weird, because every time Palpatine's plan gets foiled, he's always on top. And I'm sure dive deeper into that implication and what that means for the overall story, like you just said. I mean, if any movie might give credence to episode 9, it might be 7 and 8, but it definitely might be episode 1 too.
Well, I went so far in my my fictionalization of it to go so far as to say that Palpatine introduced the taxation of the trade routes. So in my mind, he's been doing this from the first moment he's had the chance, right? And so whether that's obviously not canon, that just came from my head. But the reason I bring it up is because it's right in line with what you're saying. Is he's been setting up every single step along the way, and when he needs to step in as Sidious, he does that. When he needs to step in as Palpatine, he does that. And so he's basically, instead of the Phantom Menace, they could have called this Palpatine Plays the Galaxy.
Yeah,
exactly what he did.
Exactly. I mean, you bring up a good point, because I had noticed as well, was this initial plan to take over supposed to happen a lot sooner or later? Because, I mean, we obviously know that there's 10 years between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Was it supposed to be planet by planet? And then he thought, well, maybe having a war would be better. I just think it's interesting to analyze that character's perspective, and maybe his plan was for it to fail initially. That's where I just would love to have just a solid Palpatine book, just like for him just to explain the whole thing. But yeah, no, it's interesting, because the more we get through this movie, the more things are kind of set up, and that's one section I want to get into later, guys. It's like the small things that were obviously mentioned, and then the big story threads that were kind of left off with this movie leading into Attack of the Clones and leading into things that actually still haven't been answered yet. But no, one thing I want to bring in is when one of the first Skywalkers we get introduced to, and I know she's not a Skywalker at this point in the story, but Padme comes in, and if I might be bold at saying this, but I see so much Padme and Leia parallels, it is insane. Like Padme is a much more stoic and royal, where Leia is a little bit more rebellious, and she's a little bit stronger at leading it. But you can see all those traits and personalities, even though it might have been a learned thing, she definitely inherited from her mom. That bold sense of ruling and how she's going to get what she wants regardless. And I mean, Padme at no point backed down, which I thought was interesting for being such a royal and 14-year-old girl leading a planet. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. It's the whole thing with Padme is, I mean, it is like you're saying with Leia. She's this fair and just ruler who wants to be. I'm trying to think. She wants to be fair to everyone. She wants to make sure everyone is taken care of, and that she's not too full of herself, but she will get done what she wants to get done if no one else is going to do it. Because I mean. The Skywalker women, those Padme, I guess maybe it's a neighbory trait, they will get done what they need to get done, and no one will stand in their way because they know they have the power to do it. Yeah,
they were both the rebel that the galaxy needed at the time that they had the opportunity to do it.
Great point. No, I completely agree. It's weird, like when you follow this story in a different perspective, and I know I keep saying that, but I've always kind of watched this movie just to watch this movie. I never watched this movie like you had said you saw it, Pete. You watched it from a very analytical, like where does this story really go kind of way. And this is I've never watched it from that perspective, and like there's some other subtle things once we leave Naboo and we get introduced to R2-D2 and like how significant he is as a character from the start of the saga. I mean, he really doesn't do much in the Phantom Menace besides save the ship, but that's really big implications, and that's what leads them to Anakin in the end. So it's cool to see our introduction of R2. I don't know if y'all liked it when it happened, but I guess I'd kind of just always accepted it.
Yeah, I was geeking out, man, the whole time. Like I was like, it's R2, and I love the whole the chute they go into, like Santa Claus stuff.
Yes,
like up into the. I just thought that was so neat because you never think about that for big like ships like that, like cruisers or whatever. We'd only ever seen them in X-wings and stuff, but it was so cool to see them wing, like trying to fix things, and then of course R2 is the only one to survive. God rest the souls of those other ones, but
they got destroyed.
Oh, they got, I mean, like, yeah, and it was almost played as comical, which is funny, but no, just from the beginning, R2 saving everybody's bacon. It's like Mark Ellis. is always saying that R2D2 is the unsung hero of the entire trilogy, or the entire saga. But I don't, just from the get go, even though he's not doing anything, R2 is like he's almost like the glue that makes sure the plan gets
Yes,
taken to fruition,
exactly.
Well, it's interesting. What they did in that scene as well was they set up something. So when I spoke to James Bainey from the Resistance broadcast, and because through the miracle of Skype, I can see you're wearing a Resistance shirt. That's awesome.
Yes,
Those guys are great.
I'm sorry.
But he was on the show, on my show, when we were talking about, when I asked people if they like R2 or C-3PO more, and his point about R2 was interesting. And in rewatching The Phantom Menace in preparation for our conversation, I kept it in mind where he said, is R2 really brave, or is he just a machine that's been programmed to be that way? But what they set up when Panaka brings him before Padme, or the Padme handmaiden, and says this is one extremely well put together droid. First of all, the fact that they are honoring and thanking a droid for saving their life is true, is interesting, and it raises the question, and then the connection, of course, even to Solo, about what is it with droids? What makes them? Are they sentient? And what do they do? And what I think that's important in this film, Scotty, because it sets up just that concept of him being a savior, being a hero, an unlikely, untraditional hero, but a hero to be sure. And the fact that he is there, and yes, he's missing from the sequels a bit, but in all 6 movies of the original and the prequels, he plays a major role in saving at least one or all of our heroes.
Very present, and you bring up a good point, because it helps me really kind of accept the fact that he might be our storyteller. I mean, like that's always been the big thing, that if anything, R2 is just taking all this in and not saying anything. And like, funny enough, it's canon that happened. And from a certain point of view, that little Jawa, I think his name was not Ott. I can't remember his name.
I'm trying to
right
remember
now.
the name, so I can't.
Jot. It's definitely Jot.
Yes.
Yes. He takes R2's memory bank and he watches it on like a holo projector, and like he literally recalls this exact moment from the Phantom Menace. And I'm like, that is just, could you imagine if that's what they end up maybe bringing in the Rise of Skywalker? I don't know. Or if it's ever like really broken down at some point. It's just it would be a great way to bring him in. And if he's being thanked by Queen Amidala, who he then sees become, Anakin's wife, and he's like the first to meet Anakin in Watto's place. It's just, I don't know. It's very interesting, because he could be our storyteller, if they ever were to do that. If they were to ever take it that route.
Yeah, there was the I don't know if it's rumor or concept or something George actually said, that at one point the droids were supposed to act like I think it's 2 characters in a Kurosawa film who are off to the side, almost the comic relief, but the ones that are telling the story. And there was always that thought that these movies were told from their point of view, which is, I think, what makes it so obvious that C-3PO and R2-D2 aren't as strongly portrayed in 7 and 8, and not as present as perhaps we would expect them to be. Great
point. And with that, it kind of leads us to our next place, which is the return of a planet we've seen before, and it's Tatooine, And one thing I want to say about Tatooine, they arrive, and it's that ship looks gorgeous on that planet. That silver and that. Yeah, I mean, that is like one of the most beautiful shots in all of the movies, just when it lands. And, we see
Lens
that
flare before
Padme,
JJ, too.
Exactly. that Padme gets off the ship with R2. Well, I guess it's a handmaiden Padme. They don't know she's the queen yet. But Padme gets to the ship with R2 and Jar Jar and Qui-Gon, and they go on that little journey into Mos Espa. But there's one thing that Qui-Gon mentions, and I thought this was only a sequel trilogy word, but he mentions the word scavengers, and I don't think it's mentioned at all until 7. And he's walking through, he goes, mostly moisture farmers work here, whatever else he said, gamblers, whatever, and he said, and scavengers. And I'm like, dang, like that could, it's a word I never thought they would, that wasn't in anything other than episode 7, but it's in episode 1. So I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if JJ got inspired from it. I have no idea, but it's just like that. You know what a scavenger is now, not
Right.
not
Sticks
when you
out
first saw
more.
the Phantom Menace. Yeah, now and especially with the most recent trailer, they got Rey jumping from thing to thing on the broken Death Star. It's like she's a scavenger at heart, and she did that for a long time. So
Yep.
I think it's a cool word that they threw in there. But then we go into one of the biggest scenes is whenever Qui-Gon and Anakin first meet. I think that's huge. Are you an angel? And that kind of starts off that weird thread of love. But we'll get into that maybe in the next discussion. Force Toes. But no, Jerry, anything you want to bring up about that first introduction back to Tatooine? Anything in particular?
Nothing really in particular, except just I think it was a really good. It was necessary for them to go back to Tatooine in this one because it felt. It's you get there and you felt like you were at home, because
yes,
though we're in a different city, we're not in Mos Eisley, we're in Mos Espa. It still felt very familiar, very warm, but yet we were seeing new visuals there too. So it was cool. It made you feel at home, but it's
familiar,
pushed things forward story wise and
yeah,
world building. So, but yeah, not much besides that though. Let's get on.
No. Well, one thing I thought was interesting, I never thought about it. What if Obi-Wan had met Anakin first? Would he feel as obligated or as strongly connected to Anakin as Qui-Gon was? It's weird to think. It might be a little bit backwards thinking, but Qui-Gon, I know he didn't desire to find someone new and train him, but when he met Anakin, it was like, there's something about him. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's something very peculiar about him. And the fact that Anakin was so young, 9, or 10, whatever age he was.
I feel like if Obi-Wan had been him first, the story would have ended right there because, you'll remember Obi-Wan said, "Why do I feel like we're taking on another pathetic life form?"
Yeah.
And,
dang, good point.
He didn't want to have anything to do with Jar Jar, and Qui-Gon believed there was a reason for him to come along.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to have anything really to do with Anakin. It felt like just it made no sense to him. And I guess this is what makes Qui-Gon the Jediest of them all. Because he sensed
Foresight.
it where I don't know that Obi-Wan would have.
Well,
Great point.
You see such a great arc with Obi-Wan because you see him here and he's like, "Oh, I'm annoyed by Jar Jar. Why are we taking this guy with us?"
Yep.
Anakin, he's like, "All right, there's this annoying kid here now. Like, oh, now I've got to train him." And I'm sure Anakin at the beginning, but then when we meet him back, not to go for, but when you get back into A New Hope, and you see him, and he's talking with Chewie's smugglers, and he's like, "You know what? Hey, we're gonna go trust this smuggler, and I know how to. These people have value, and I can talk to these people and work things out with." So we've got him here. He's episode 1. We've got him. Annoyed by Jar Jar, and why are we taking this kid on? And by the time we meet him in A New Hope, he's learned that
way more like Qui-Gon.
He's made way more quiet. Yes, he's finally become his master. He's learned that not every life form has something to offer to your journey. You don't have to. You don't need to go around just being annoyed by everything, but he's become more of a Jedi. He's being more Jedi.
Right.
Exactly. And there's one thing I always thought was interesting about, that Obi-Wan, especially in this movie, he's kind of he's a little naive, and that's okay because that's the introduction to this character. I mean, Obi-Wan had to start from somewhere, but by the time Attack of the Clones comes around, he's pretty straight-laced. He's not like Qui-Gon. He's not like him all the way, but by the time we see him in A New Hope, he's a lot more like Qui-Gon. He's just a lot more like, look, we got it. If you're going to help me, get this plan to this chick, you have to come with me. He's like, he's a little bit more almost manipulative in a weird way. But we'll get into that when we get to A New Hope.
Right.
One thing I want to bring up is how similar young Anakin, Luke, and Rey are in the sense of just their personalities. Like you've got Anakin being such a kind kid. Jar Jar gets attacked by Sebulba. He stops him, and he's building a droid from his mom, and he's just trying to win money for Qui-Gon. He wants nothing out of it. He's a great kid. And when you think about how different that is from Luke, Luke is very selfish. I just want to do this. I just want to do that. I mean, he complains about every little thing. And then we get Rey, who at the same exact time is very similar to those two. She's just kind of a loner. And it's very cool to see how different each hero, I guess you could say, is based on the saga. They might have similar backstories, all come from a sandy place, but like in regards to how they are as characters, very different characters, very different motives, except for the fact that they all want to get off this planet. They don't want to be on this place anymore. They all have a drive. Like Anakin obviously is like, yeah, I'm going to be the best starfighter in the galaxy. I want to see every planet, Do all these stars have a planet? And like, yeah, most of them do. And like Luke complaining how he wants to get off this rock, and then we got Rey who same exact thing is looking at those ships taking off and just reflecting on it. It's just it's so cool to see what this means for the greater story.
But what's interesting, I think what's the biggest difference, or an interesting difference, is that when given the chance to leave, Anakin took it. Like,
yeah,
sure, he was a little bit upset that he was leaving his mother, and I know that becomes a bigger, more important part. But he did it. Now, of course, he was 9 years old. I dropped my 7-year-old off at a play date, and he runs, and like it's not like I was never there. Whereas my 10-year-old will be like, "Are you sure you're going to be here on time?" and all these things. So there's a different mindset the younger the character is, but. You have Anakin who is who is happy to go off and become a Jedi, but he was going to miss his mother. Luke was just a brat and wanted to leave, right? And
exactly.
And if we break it down again, this isn't the New Hope breakdown, but if we break it down, his aunt and uncle died, and he was like, "All right, here's my chance to go be a hero." And that sounds ugly, but it's kind of what it is. And Rey, she leaves Jakku, and she's immediately worried that she's missing something if she doesn't go back.
Weird?
So it's three different ways to handle the same exact sort of thing.
Exactly. And you make a good point, because you see that Anakin, the only animosity he has at one point is when he's like, right when he's walking away, he's like, I don't know if I can do it. And we'll get into that later about Shmi and how interesting that character is. But one thing I want to say about Anakin's just subtleties as a person, he obviously cares deeply for his mom. He's the only Skywalker that knows his mother, besides Ben Solo. But he's the only Skywalker that has a relationship and loves his mom, and he even makes C-3PO for her. And that's where it gets interesting to me, because at such a young age, he has this ability to build droids and be a pod racer and all this. It's really kind of cool. But, I mean, if you were a 9-year-old kid, wouldn't that be your interest too? I mean, it's like... It's odd, because there's a thing to me that I have written down, like, not only now that we think about it, especially with the most recent trailer for The Rise of Skywalker, is C-3PO another storyteller in this overarching thing. And in The Return of the Jedi, he definitely does tell stories, but this in particular, it's like, are we going to see this again? Will this definitely come back, being that 3PO is made by Anakin? Is that maybe why they're wiping his memory? I mean, I don't know.
It really feels, with that trailer, especially that little bit that we got, and it's probably like edited in a very deceptive way, but
yeah,
right.
It does feel very much everything that we've seen with the droid programmer and stuff, and Jason Ward making Star Wars, talking about how there's a MacGuffin that's going to surprise everybody, and
yeah,
kind of what that is and all that. I think it could come back into play, and I mean, why wouldn't you? It would just tie things together so beautifully, kind of have him get his memories back too.
Yes,
of everything, and to actually be like the R2D2, but an R2 who likes to blab. So
yeah,
right.
It would be very interesting.
There's two pieces within other movies that make the connection, and one of them to me is at the end of Revenge of the Sith, they make a point of saying, have this droid's memory wiped.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So they make a mention of that. And then in A New Hope, 3PO says, not anything of anything importance anyway. I'm not very good at telling stories. So he references the fact that he is a storyteller.
Yes.
Maybe not a good one. And then, of course, in Return of the Jedi, we see him telling stories that have the entire Ewok village wrapped in attention. So it's in there. And I think that there is something to that. And Scotty, you had made some points about about just the role that he plays, and he says thank the maker.
Yes.
At one point in New Hope, and we now know the maker is Anakin Skywalker.
Anakin, which is crazy, which is so cool, and it's. I'm sure a lot of people, and I wasn't old enough to understand it or be around for it, but I'm sure a lot of people did like that. But for me,
Yep.
and seeing it, it almost makes sense because there's this. I mean, you never see them interact in the OG trilogy. What a better way for, to have some parallel, like, Anakin built this thing that ends up being such an influential part of this entire saga is just so cool. And I like to see these characters meet. And of course, the second thing that R2 says to 3PO, it's like, man, you're naked or something. He's like,
Yeah.
My parts are showing.
My parts are showing. It's great. And this kind of a harsh transition, but we get to go to the pod race scene. We see that 3PO holds the flag up and he's walking through, and how important that whole interaction is with, like, Anakin and Sebulba, and then Watto and Qui-Gon, and how Qui-Gon kind of manipulates the Force to get Shmi a part of. I'm not Shmi, to get Anakin to be a part of the deal. That's what a better way to use it. And it might not be the most moral way, but he's playing to Watto's, I guess you can say, character flaws.
Well, and it's hard to use the moral way to get to free a slave, right?
Yeah.
Almost like, is there a moral way to do that? It's not very moral for them to have that either. So yeah, it's just it's Qui-Gon doing what the light side calls him to do, and not
exactly
what society or whatever says. He's like, you know what, this is right, whatever the laws on Tatooine are.
Yes,
he shouldn't have this kid, and for one thing, I want to take him back with me. So
well,
right.
I know this is kind of jumping the gun too, but like Shmi's like, I don't want him to do this, but if it's going to help you get your part, we're going to do it. You see how sacrificial these two characters are. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, Anakin never finished a race. Qui-Gon has all of this betting on him, and I mean, if it would have been realistic, honestly, if the Force maybe not had played into it, we probably would have seen Anakin lose, and they would have been in much more trouble then. But it's cool to see how maybe the Force has a greater influence over all of this, Maybe the Force did allow Anakin to win, and we see how that pod race win is kind of the turning point for the whole thing. Because it's at that point you're kind of like waiting to see where this story's going to go, and it does take a really good turn, And then we have a.
I don't disagree with that at all. I do think though that was one of the things that I had an issue with the movie, and I know we're not critiquing it, but I think it's an important.
Bring it up.
It's a perspective that I think was missed, and in turn has become more interesting. And that is, I feel like if I was directing, and thankfully I wasn't, I would have had the Force play more of a part in the pod race, a more obvious part. Like, he uses the Force without. Now, that being said, without doing that, I think it allows us as the audience to make that inference ourselves, which I think is the one thing. If George did nothing else as a master filmmaker in the 4 movies he directed, it was to nicely drop things that allow the audience to go afterwards and have a conversation about. And so I would have used it there. I also would have used it at the end in the space battle, but I'm sure we'll get to that. But I think that. So where I'm going with that is, and connecting it to what you're saying, is that, the Force definitely is this sort of, that thing that we all feel every now and then, where we're like, boy, this happened for a reason. Something doesn't make sense, and then, you leave the house 5 minutes late for work, and if you had left on time, you would have been in that car wreck, or these sort of things that go on. So I think it did have a role, and maybe George is a better filmmaker than we give him credit for, and didn't hit us over the head with it and let it sort of make sense on its own.
Beautiful point. And well, there's one thing that I think is the most interesting, and Star Wars, the word dreams never really comes up that often. And at one point, Anakin mentions when he's eating dinner, he's always had a dream to be a Jedi. He wants to go back and free all the slaves on Tatooine. But like, that idea of dreams, that's the only time he kind of mentions, like, yeah, I dreamed I'd be a Jedi, which might be some sort of, foresight that he will be a Jedi. But, like, the only time dreams are ever mentioned again is the sequel trilogy. When Rey's like, yeah, when Kylo Ren's tapping into her mind, she's like, yeah, she sees this island, and oh, I
Love
see
that.
it. Yeah, the island. It's like, it's cool to know that these dreams, quote unquote, might be foresight, and definitely I'm for Anakin to race, being the only human to race, he's got to have foresight to do it. He's got to have this ability to predict things before they happen, and I think I think Shmi even says that, and I just love that Qui-Gon, and I know Jerry wanted to bring this up, that Qui-Gon and Shmi have a weird connection, kind of, if you think about it.
Man, talking about Qui-Gon being the most Jedi to ever Jedi, but at the same time, the Jedi have some rigid rules about PDA and all that. And so, I don't know. I just, and that's something my mom, watching with her whenever I was a kid, like, we got it on VHS, and I remember watching with my parents and my mom going like, I just really feel like they're going to end up together. It's just like they are, and then, of course they, unfortunately we lose Qui-Gon, at least.
Yes.
But it makes you wonder what was going on between them, because there are some moments on Tatooine with them talking where it's very tender.
It is.
And Qui-Gon is, he's a Jedi, and like we said, he knows how to talk to people and stuff. He's very he's very empathetic and all.
He is.
But I don't know. They're just always, and watching it again and thinking about that, I was like, there really does seem. Hey, call me crazy, but it's it's 2019. We're in the shipping culture, so I ship Qui-Gon and Shmi. So
that's great. No, I mean
Shmi-Gon.
Imagine if Rey was
that's amazing.
The product. What if Rey was the product of Shmi and Qui-Gon?
Oh my! Okay, now we're getting crazy. No, okay. Well, but what do you guys say? Am I off base, or do you think like there was like it really has no bearing to the story unless something comes of it?
I mean,
next chapter, but it's just I don't know. It just it always seemed like it was there to me.
It would be insane to think that. No, I'm sorry. It wouldn't be insane. I said that wrong. To think that there might have been some sort of interest there, because we know Obi-Wan and Satine, and Obi-Wan even says, like, if in the Clone Wars, if I had the choice to go back again, I would choose you over the Jedi Order.
Well, he said if you would have said the word.
Yeah, that was it.
It's like, which is a big statement, and what it proves, honestly, it has no bearing to the story except for that it proves these are human characters.
Exactly.
Right. And so that it just makes them more, it makes Qui-Gon more of a, even though he is like this big Jedi on a pedestal that we kind of look to as this is what a Jedi is, it still makes us go, no, okay, that guy, he was a guy, he had feelings, he was a human being. So and not really, because this is all fake and in space.
Well, one thing I think it needs to be stated was that, like, Qui-Gon was very much aware of the current situation. He literally even says to Shmi, our meeting was not a coincidence. Nothing happens by accident. And I think, like, that's so huge for the rest of storytelling, and honestly the rest of fandom. A lot of people try to dig way too deep about who Rey is and where she comes from, but, like, I mean, regardless, that character was not a coincidence. There is a bigger purpose to all this. It might not have, it might be simply because their ship ran out of, the hyperdrive was done. It might simply be that, but that coincidence of them meeting was huge,
Well, what about, this is a crazy thought, maybe this is the first instance of darkness rises and light to meet it. Dude. So perhaps there's a direct connection there, that the Force brought them there so that they could find this child or this very important piece of the puzzle.
Great point.
No, that's 100% what I think that's what's going to be revealed with this. I think that's what this new trilogy is trying to say. There's going to be a chosen one. There's always going to be someone who has to stand up against the darkness. I agree 100%, Pete. I think you're on to something there for sure.
That is beautifully said, because I have something written here that I always thought about. Had Palpatine ever foreseen Anakin? At any point, in the past canon, quote unquote, that we don't or we are not aware of, did he foresee Anakin? Did he knew from the beginning? Did he even create Anakin? Which is, I hope to God it's touched upon in The Rise of Skywalker, because they had that one comic where Vader's walking through that portal and he sees Shmi standing there, and then Palpatine standing behind Shmi, and there's this
it's like
demon
the most
thing
creepy selfie ever, where he's like pointing.
Yes,
Yeah, I did this. Maybe
it's creepy, but think about it. What a better way to just show his influence over the whole frickin'. He was the creator of the Skywalkers, and maybe the Rise of Skywalker implies that they're going to rise above Palpatine finally. It's just there's just so much interesting with just Anakin that's still left unsaid after 6 entire movies around him. It's and of course Palpatine too. And one thing I thought was very interesting, and it kind of parallels A New Hope. Whenever Anakin's about to leave, and you could tell he's kind of a little upset. He's like, I don't know if I can do this, Mom. Shmi says this exactly, and I think this is really, really profound. She says, let go. You can't stop the change any more than you can stop the suns from setting. So, think about Luke in A New Hope. You can't stop the change any more than the suns from setting. And then think about Luke's death, too. It's it's cool they mentioned the suns. They didn't say the sun. They said the suns. Right. And it's Tatooine is so influential of the Force, and I don't know if we'll see it in The Rise of Skywalker. We might not. It might be the last shot. I don't know. But to have it be, where both of our main heroes came from is very interesting, and Rey being from a similar place as well. And honestly, the cool part is Anakin asks her, will I ever see you again? And she has an answer. She goes, be brave, don't look back, don't look back. And that's the first time we hear the Force theme really going off in this movie. So it kind of parallels the much bigger journey.
Well, and she also reinforces too, doesn't she? The what does your heart tell you?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Which colors the rest of his entire journey. In becoming a Jedi and stuff. It's what causes him to go back to Tatooine in Attack of the Clones, which again we'll get to.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought was cool is this whole thing on Tatooine honestly is like a break from the overall story. And it's the only Star Wars movie that does it. Because most Star Wars movies have this sequence happening here and this sequence happening here. A New Hope doesn't have that, but Empire Strikes Back does, Return of the Jedi does. Every other movie besides A New Hope and this movie has a sequence, and actually The Force Awakens too. But this is strictly we are just on Tatooine. All this is taking place just on Tatooine. And then we get back into the more, I guess, galactic situation once they leave, which I thought was a very cool storytelling, because you kind of get more of the Padme stuff then. It focuses on Anakin for a solid 45, 50 minutes. Then we kind of get back into what is the primary focus of this story, which I think it's kind of like watching a movie within a movie. I like it.
Yep.
That whole segment.
Very Return of the Jedi.
Movie. It is. It very much
There's
is.
There's your ring theory for you.
There you go.
It rhymes.
Yes.
Well, it's cool because we then learn we get back on the ship and C.O. Bebble's been trying to get in contact with them, and Obi-Wan's it's a trap. We cannot make contact with them, and then we kind of lead us back to Coruscant, and we see more of Padme, and we finally get introduced to Palpatine. Really get introduced. I know he was in the hologram at the beginning, but we finally he walks up. He's in all blue. And then we get
all his feathered haired good glory. Look at him.
Yes.
So beautiful.
And y'all, Coruscant. I long for Coruscant still.
The entire planet is one big city, as Captain Exposition said.
Yes.
Captain Exposition.
That was shout out. I'm trying to remember who said. I think it might have been Rez on our live stream the other night. That was so much fun. If you guys haven't checked it out, but go check that out if it's still available, and just watch the Phantom Menace. This is Phantom Menace week for us. So, but
yeah,
let's continue here.
Well, we know that Palpatine obviously is trying to play to both sides, because he goes up to Padme and he's he's like, oh no, you can't. We can't go back. We can't do this. You can't. This is not a good idea. But you can always do a vote for no confidence since they're not helping us out.
That's right.
But like either way in that situation, he would have won. And Padme does what Leia would have done, and she goes against the Senate, and then she says, not only am I going to the Senate, but I'm going back and fighting. And you can tell there's maybe a half a second shot. Palpatine's face goes from being like, no, you must, to being like, you don't do it. And it's such a subtle change, and it shows that like this seed that he's planting, he does not want it to get messed up because he wants both sides to definitely, still work out for him. So
see, I always saw that even I remember it from the first time I saw it I saw that almost like the Willy Wonka. Oh no, please don't. I think it was. I felt like it was. He was like, yep, that's what you got to do. I gotta pretend that I care, but I need you to go and go back to your planet. Yep.
Right.
Wow.
Well, if not even that, I mean, Ken Knapsack, I like the way he puts it too. It's like he almost gets like freaked out for a second, like, wait, no.
Yeah.
Okay, that works.
Yeah, that'll work. We can work with that. Yeah.
It's like he goes, wait, no, okay, all right, be careful.
Well, yeah, and before he leaves, that's when he says, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one, because he's been elected, he's been nominated. And the cool thing that no one else has brought up, but I don't know if they got the name wrong, I don't know, but at one point it was either him, someone from... what's the other planet?
It's Bail Antilles of Alderaan and
well, they said
team of Malastare.
They said Bail Antilles, and I'm like, is it Organa or am I wrong? Like,
here are my thoughts on it.
Okay.
Either the man takes the woman's name, especially in the royal situation.
Oh.
That, and maybe it's Bria Organa.
Yes.
Or they were just like, we got Bail and Antilles are a couple of Alderanian names, so maybe it's like George and Smith,
See, but to me, that's like a small story thread that's been tied in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you kind of hear that, and if you listen, Bail Organa, you helped my father, Bail Organa, in the Clone War. Like, it could be...
Oh, my ears perk up immediately. Like, as soon as I heard... Even when I was 12, I was like, wait, I've heard those two names before.
Exactly.
What's going on?
And, well, it's funny, like, Palpatine is just so subtle with it. And, like, even if he doesn't say it straightforward, like you said, his face just like the thing in Willy Wonka, his face just says it all. And you're like, it's kind of a beautiful thing, because that's where I think George just is genius. Like, that is where it's freaking genius that he does this.
It is brilliant. And remember, there's even that line, doesn't he say before they leave, and when he tells who's been nominated to be for election, he says, I will be Chancellor.
Yes.
The line of that is like, I will be Chancellor and I will make things better,
Yes.
But there's a little bit of that sprinkling of, a little bit of evil seasoning on top of it. It's just delicious. So
well, at the same time all this is happening, we get the parallel of Anakin at the Jedi Council, and we see that Mace Windu's there, Yoda's there, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and like all these, the council, and it's kind of cool because they don't make it a big deal. You're just in it, and they've been talking about the Jedi Council. I don't think the council would agree with this, and like you finally see it, and it's just 12 people sitting around a circle at the top of this citadel, and it's cool. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing, but it's like you think about the Jedi and what the Jedi were, and my image was probably just like that. There was these people that were in command, and they didn't really do much fighting. They were just warriors for peace, and it's just, you see how that kind of gets flipped. How they go from being these stoic, intelligent, hyper-aware of the Force to then being slowly blinded, which I think is really kind of cool in the prequels. But we see that Yoda, one of the first, I think it might have been, was it Mace or Yoda that says, your thoughts dwell on your mother, afraid to lose
it was Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Ki-Adi-Mundi, yep.
Wow.
That dude has more insight than we think. He has insight, and he is really worried about the Wookiees.
Yes.
Well, my favorite. He's also in my favorite meme, which is where he says, "Your thoughts dwell on your mother," and Anakin says, "My thoughts dwell on your mother."
Your mother.
That is a good one. Oh my gosh.
Well, it kind of shows this too. Like, and I failed to mention this. I'm sorry. I got to get back a little bit further into it. Remember, Anakin gives Padme that necklace, which is kind of a subtle moment,
snippet.
but but it's a much bigger deal in Episode 3, which we'll get into with Eric later. Now, with that being said, Qui-Gon goes against the Jedi Council still, and it's so funny. The Jedi that care too much are like, but you won't be on the council, if you do that. Obi-Wan says that. Like, you're not going to be on the... And then Anakin is upset that he's not on the council. But it's not about the council, and Qui-Gon's obviously aware of that. It's about being in tune with the light side of the Force. You know what I mean? It's not about the council. Right. That's all BS. It's not real.
He's not in it for notoriety. He's not in it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so... That's all I got to say about that, man. I mean, just again, the most Jedi.
He's Jediing to be a Jedi.
Yes.
There's one really cool thing where, Yoda goes in this thing, and it's like probably the first Star Wars quote I remember. Like, I had I don't know if you remember this, the communicator toy that came out when
the
Phantom Menace came out.
Chips.
Yeah, and you take the chips and put it on there. I had the Yoda one, and it did the fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And, like, the coolest thing about it is there's been all this art that has come out, of course, since. And it's like, a photo of Anakin at one point, and it's like fear leads to anger. And then you see that. Anger leads to hate, and then hate leads to suffering. And you realize, like, that's the whole Skywalker saga. Like, even with Ben Solo, that's the whole Skywalker saga. Like, he feared Luke turning against him, and then Luke feared the same exact thing, with Ben. And look at everyone suffering in the end. Ben Solo is suffering, Luke suffering, Anakin suffering. All these Skywalker men, they're afraid. They are powerful people, and they're afraid of their own power. So I think
you see that juxtaposition too between them and Palpatine. Where that suffering, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. That suffering, if you wallow in it enough, will turn you into a monster.
Yes.
Yep.
And I don't know if Palpatine fears anything, or if he's angry about anything, or if he's suffering from anything. I think that's where Palpatine's a different Sith. I think he's the least emotional Sith that there has ever been. Like, at no point is he like, woe is me. He just knows how to play his cards and do what he can do that'll outwit the next person. And I this might sound wrong, but I almost hope he actually dies. Like, I hope in The Rise of Skywalker he is not triumphant for once. Like, I really do, because I want to see how can someone really defeat him. Like,
so this is where I think... and it leads to Episode 9 speculation directly from both Episode 1 and specifically what you were saying, in that every apprentice he's had, he has relied on the ability to manipulate them. I still don't know a lot about the Count Dooku relationship, but Maul, he used him like a weapon. He constantly he was a almost. He played on his fears, and he was sadistic about it, right? So, and Anakin, we see that he killed his wife. Yep. We don't know exactly how, but whether he did it or Palpatine had something to do with it or whatever, but he played on that. And he, even just the way he speaks to Luke in Return of the Jedi, it's sort of like, oh, I'm afraid this Death Star, he's kind of and I feel like he won't be able to do that to Rey. He's able to do that to Kylo, whether he's doing it now or not. Kylo is a firecracker of emotions. He's a mess, right?
It's true.
And Rey is not, and that's why I think Rey will be able to defeat him, because she's as calm and collected as he is. And to your point about Episode 1, that he was calm and collected, and even when the plan wasn't going 100% right, it was fine because I got it figured out. This is going to work out.
Yep. At least one side of the story is going to be working. One side of this battle, I'm going to win it. It might not be the one I want to win, but I mean, his cards are really pretty kind of good in this movie. He's got a good hand. But one thing I think is really kind of cool is that there's a line that Yoda says, "Clouded this boy's future is," and of course we know in the grand scheme of things that Yoda was right. It was clouded, but it's weird because there's this kind of feeling that I get, at least, that like, does he know that for a fact, or is it just because he's an older kid getting trained? You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's because clouded the Jedi's future was. They couldn't see anything at that time. Yep.
Yeah, and they didn't. At that time, they really didn't want to tell anybody. You know, I mean, beginning. You know, like, is it this one? I can't remember. Is it Phantom Menace or is it Attack of the Clones? Where like, I think we should tell the Senate that our ability to use the Force is diminished. That's Attack of the Clones, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So see, this is just kind of like they're like, okay, something's going on. He seems kind of clouded, and it just, that thread follows through to where they just, I mean, they had pride. They didn't want to let people know because it's like, you know, if we ask for help or tell people, then they're gonna know we're vulnerable.
Yes. Well, one thing I want to bring up, and I might have brought it earlier, but it's that quote from Mace Windu: "A virgin's in the Force, and you believe it's this boy. What if it wasn't? Think about that. What if it was Palpatine the whole time, and Qui-Gon had a little bit of a miss? I guess he was not attuned as everyone thought he was. That maybe this Virgins of the Force was maybe not Anakin, maybe Palpatine this entire time, and just the Jedi had their Force thoughts in different areas than they should have. You know, and that's kind of painted later. You know, like you said, the very end of Attack of the Clones, isn't Yoda say, like, you know, clouded the future is, or something like that? You know, it goes from being
the shroud of the dark side,
clouded.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. No, say it. Do you remember it?
Well, no. What he talks about at the end of the movie is how the shroud of the dark side has fallen.
Yes.
And so, you know, it's kind of like there's this whole shroud right now that they're in the thick of it right now. You know?
Yes.
And it's just kind of, that's why things seem like they're at peace, but it's just a little off.
Yes.
Right.
And I guess to progress this story and where we're going to go and what the ultimate fate of these characters are, we see them go back to Naboo, and we kind of see Boss Nass in a new light. He's the one they needed help with in that one situation, but now they really need Boss Ass's help. They really need the Gungans' help. And how cool is that? It's kind of like the Ewoks, if you think about it, except they're on their side. It's weird to say, but like you have the Gungans, who are this other civilization coexisting on this planet, and now they need these Gungans' helps because the humans are now screwed. You know what I mean? And
right.
I mean, what a better way to get someone to join if Padme makes an agreement like we will live in a mutual existing relationship, and everything from here on out will be, you know, we will think of you when we do it too. It's kind of I think it's kind of an incredible thing. I don't know. It's something that's often forgotten with this story, is that the Gungans had to make a pretty big sacrifice too, especially with this final battle, which I think,
yeah,
if we're going to go back and kind of break open the story, I think it's still one of the greatest. Like, it's the only one, if I'm not mistaken, that has 4 sequences going on at once. We've got the trade feds in space with Anakin. You've got Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Maul. You've got Padme going around Feed. And then you've got the Gungans on the main battle. And, like,
right,
the way it's done is that all their stories are all intertwined, more so than Return of the Jedi, and more so than I think it's the only one that actually does that too.
Yeah. That was kind of like the parallel to
the
trilogy, was that it seems like a 3-way battle, but I didn't actually notice till you made the point, Scotty, that it's, you know, you got land, you got ground battle, space battle, the soul of the galaxy.
Yep.
It's always the Force users.
The land was a distraction for them to be able to get to Feed. And then the obviously the conflict between Obi-Wan, Maul, and Qui-Gon was its own little thing that actually wasn't even part of the bigger. Maul happened to be there, and then the space battle is what's controlling the battle down there. It's like,
right.
It's way more complex than people give it credit. That's like,
right. There's a little more like intrigue and
complexity,
stuff, and like almost spycraft with Padme.
Yes,
trying to infiltrate. You know,
like in Return of the Jedi, it's just Han has to blow up that thing for the ships to get in. That's it. That serves its purpose. And then once they get in, we see, Anakin and Vader doing their thing, and then that ends. And then they get out, and then, Luke has to get out too. So, like, it's weird. This is the first time you're seeing it from this perspective where it's like, no, all these little sequences have to work together. And it's actually pretty intricate, and especially when we get to the Maul and Obi-Wan fight, which is mostly mute of dialogue, which is the first time I think that's happened in Star Wars 2. There's no discussion at all. It's all nonverbal.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
It is really cool. And it's important too, because you don't get sucked into that possibility of some cheesy kind of, Freddy Krueger bad line,
Right.
And it works really well. Yep.
And I wonder if there might have been a scripted point of it, but the fact that there is literally no words all the way from that part on to where Obi-Wan yells no. They don't say anything. And like, there's one thing I want to get into that we actually discussed for the podcast, and they're fighting. And remember that the little shield scene where Obi-Wan, the laser gates, and Obi-Wan couldn't make it.
Something.
And Qui-Gon sitting there, and Maul's walking like a tiger in his cage, back and forth, staring at him. Such a cool scene.
I love that. Love that. Yep.
But Jerry, was it Pete? I don't remember who said it at the very beginning before we even started recording. Someone mentioned how maybe Qui-Gon had some sort of foresight.
He's sitting there like meditate. He's the only one who sits down and stops to meditate. Again, being the most Jedi of Jedi.
Yep.
And Obi-Wan's young. He's ready to go. He's back there. He's getting himself psyched up.
Pumped up, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Maul is just a wild animal. He's just a deadly weapon ready to go. Getting his anger built up. And Qui-Gon stops. And he turns off his saber. I mean, they all pretty much do, but he stops. He turns off his saber, and he meditates.
Yep.
Who's to say he doesn't see his fate? You've got to think he did. He know what was going to happen to him? Did he even see that? Well, I've got to go out here, and I'm probably not coming back, but I've got to go out here, and I've got to finish this for there to ultimately be balance.
Yes.
Even, and that could have far-reaching consequences, even, all the way to the Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, I completely agree. And there's one thing that I failed to mention was the inclusion of midi-chlorians in this. And at one point he does say, I mean, it's huge to me. I know it sounds silly, but George was doing something very interesting when he painted this picture. And in Clone Wars, they obviously break it down much more. And he says if you quiet your mind enough, you can hear the will of the Force, which is determined by the midi-chlorians inside of you. And maybe he was quieting his mind enough to have, these wills speak to him and say, this is what will happen. And, he will come back at some point, through the Force, in which we see that much later, and it'll guide you and guide your Padawan too with Obi-Wan, which is very much alluded to in Revenge of the Sith, which I think we're going to get in the Obi-Wan series. I know I'm stepping off a little too far than I should, but when you really think about it and like what that moment could imply for the overall saga, I think it's actually pretty profound. Just him meditating there, because we haven't seen that. Besides when Rey's about to fall off the cliff and she closes her eyes and she feels the Force and she hears the Force
in. Right.
Yeah. Lets the Force awaken within her. So it's, I don't know. I just think it's, if he were to anticipate his death, maybe he knew this would happen and he listened to the wills when it happened. I don't know. And then when his death ultimately does happen, we see how important it is. And his last promise, the one thing he's like, I just promise me you'll train the boy, is just such a cool thing, because that might have been his mistake, or it might have been, like Jerry said, maybe some sort of Doctor Strange Infinity War foresight that it would help him. I don't know.
Seeing all
the
outcomes. Yeah.
The only inconsistency that I see in that scene, and again, why do I feel like I'm always the guy who's like,
no worries.
But is Obi-Wan, or maybe, as I'm going to say it, I'm thinking about it, and it's making sense to me. Obi-Wan comes out like like a ball of fire, just swinging and swinging and swinging like Luke did to Vader. He's pissed. But when he wins the battle, it's when he's at his most calm. Sure, he's hanging and dangling for his life, but that's when he takes that moment to just stop, pause, consider the situation. And maybe that's the lesson there is, he was never going to win that battle if he just kept coming at him hard like that. And the only way to win it was to be contemplative. And, of course, that's the way Luke beats the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. And I would not be surprised to see that echoed at the most critical moment in Episode 9.
Damn good point. Yeah, no, it's weird because, and to kind of jump back for a second, that is the best choreographed fight scene still.
Oh, it's still my favorite lightsaber battle, without a doubt.
It is. Yeah. And he does the thing where he goes behind his back with the saber. Like, dude, that is so phenomenal. But when he quiets his mind and he jumps up and slices Maul in half, it kind of makes you see a little bit more of a parallel between Maul and Palpatine, now that you think about it. Because Maul lived and he fell down a chasm. Palpatine lived and he fell down a chasm. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, it's been shown that no matter how hard the fall or how long the fall was, and we know Palpatine obviously some sort of blue explosion happened, but it's just so it's interesting because Maul didn't die there. And it's made very clear that he didn't die there.
Maybe that's why there's such few OSHA regulations in the Star Wars.
Exactly.
You can fall off and you can come back.
You'll be fine. Yeah. Walk it off, man. Walk it off. And go get a frozen bag of bantha milk over there and put it.
Yeah. Just put it.
No, what it proves is that there is something to the dark side. There is something to this power that
dude.
There's a reason why people choose this, and it also shows the power of someone's hatred. It's just I think even though there is power in it, it's not the power that you want to go for.
No, but it's
ultimately, like you were saying, Pete, the lesson is look at what happened. Obi-Wan was triumphant because he quieted his mind.
Yep.
Did what he remembered his teachings. Rey, she ends up beating Kylo because she quiets her mind. Luke makes the right decision, throws down his saber and says, I'm not going to fight. I'm going to stop. And ultimately wins the battle for him. Just, I don't know, it's a very deep theme, and I'm just going to end up going on a tangent through
No, that's the beauty of this movie alone. It really kind of sets the standard for the overarching story, and it's kind of cool. I think a lot of what people thought when this movie originally came out was just going to be Anakin seeing that dark side initially happen, but it was not quite what that was at all. It was very much just how to see where this how Palpatine, like Pete said earlier, kind of came into existence, especially with the use of Maul and Maul's death, which I think for a lot of people was very disappointing. But in regards to Maul as a character too, it's barely any dialogue. Obviously, really not that important at the time being, but later is much more important. And you see that Palpatine really kind of used this dude as just cattle. You're just trying to get from point A to point B. And I don't know, it's kind of cool because we do see Naboo being won back, and we do see Qui-Gon's funeral, and he wants obviously wants Obi-Wan to train him and promise me you'll train him. And then we get to this part where they show Yoda and Obi-Wan. He's like, I'm not going to train him. Like, nope. No, I'm sorry. Yoda saying you will not train him. He is way too old, clouded in his future. And to me, that 1,000% parallels what happens in Empire Strikes Back. Like, nope, too old, can't train him. And it's the same exact thing. It's another Skywalker. So it's very, very interesting in that regard because you see that Yoda still holds the same sentiment. Sorry, that was Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Sorry.
It wouldn't be an episode without cameo. So.
No, let me edit that. But no, y'all, not to say we're done with this, but to think about what Palpatine does too, and the very subtle manipulation of of Anakin, and he's like, "We'll watch your career with great interest."
Oh,
It's
how
like,
creepy is that now?
So
You know what I mean?
creepy.
Like, it's you
A
stay
little
away
bully.
from that precious little baby.
Exactly.
Stay away from him, sir.
No, and one thing I wanted to bring up, and I
So
know I
funny.
mentioned it
Yeah.
a little bit earlier, they watched the funeral pyre for Qui-Gon, and I wanted to bring this up, and it just dawned on me, and I'm so happy I thought of it. The only other funeral pyre you see in all of Star Wars, it was Qui-Gon, and then it was Vader. So you kind of see the beginning, you see the cause of this, and then you see the end of this. Like, same exact. They have this beautiful funeral pyre, and it's weird to think that the son of the man, I guess Vader's son is the one giving him the funeral pyre, and then there's Vader's a little boy giving the man that promised to be his master a funeral pyre. And the music that's played, which is very interesting, and I'm getting chills talking about it because it's the same exact funeral music that's played when Padme dies. All right, and I really
Padme's
yes,
funeral. Yeah.
yes,
Well, yeah,
Padme's
and her
funeral.
death. And her death.
Yes,
Right.
and her death. So I don't know what that means, but not saying Ben Solo's gonna go, but if we see a death, what a better way to show
Scott.
the journey of the Force.
Oh, what are you doing
with
to
that
me?
same music. Even if they had done that with Han, I don't know if it would have been as strong, but like if they do a funeral pyre, what if it was? I don't know. Like it's pretty deep, but like it's cool because at one point Yoda and Mace are like, what? If there's a apprentice, then there must have been a master, and it just cuts to that shot of Palpatine. The music kind of builds, and Palpatine's just
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
yes, but it's
Right?
but it's so well done.
It is very beautiful. I love it.
Because you see Jar Jar there, sad. You see Obi-Wan. You see Padme. Everyone is there in just absolute mourning, and then you kind of see Palpatine respectfully looking on, but it's just it's so dark.
Snake in the grass, man. Snake in the.
It's so dark, but
But then we throw a parade,
Then we throw a parade. Yeah, we won. We beat
and
the
we're all
True
happy.
Friends.
We're playing a happy tune.
Could we get a funeral pyre in Episode 9 for Han, Leia,
know.
and Ben?
Wow. Oh my God. I have no. See, the Leia thing, I almost don't want to touch it because I don't know what that's going to be like.
I think she's making it through because I just think
I don't know.
I don't know. I think that's been a big criticism is like, oh, they're going to kill someone in each one. I just don't think they'll touch it. And I don't know. They could handle it very well. We don't know. So
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this build-up.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some things you can think about when watching and listening to this. It's like this funeral pyre thing is obviously a Jedi tradition, and I don't know where Luke learned it from, and I don't know if it was just out of his heart or it. And you see, and this is getting real crazy. The funeral pyre obviously led to Kylo Ren finding the mask, and just it's not really discussed. That it's not really discussed when anyone brings up this Jedi tradition, but it's definitely a tradition.
what if the funeral pyre in Episode 9 is Palpatine, but it's not a respectful pyre?
Ooh,
More of
it's
a
like burning the hell out of him,
yeah,
burning him so
just
he
like
can't come
make
back.
sure he's dead.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that could be too.
You never know.
Yeah.
It could be like maybe Rey and Kylo are both there, and they just make sure, and it's like kind of a weird juxtaposition.
That's brilliant, actually. If that
Isn't
happens,
Well, let me-
Scotty, you're buying me dinner. No, I'm just kidding. No.
No. Wait, I want to say one thing. The symbolism, and I had pointed this out months ago, and it didn't dawn on me till Jerry just said that. The symbolism of fire in Star Wars is very interesting because for Luke, just Luke, he walks in and he comes back home, and his family, Aunt Beru and Owen, they're on fire. The whole place is pretty much on fire. I mean, Laster, they were smoking. At one point, someone was on fire. Then the next shot with fire was whenever, if I'm not mistaken, was when he's standing in front of Vader's body, right? And that fire happens, and there's a funeral pyre there. The next symbolism of fire was, if I'm not mistaken, it was when Ben Solo burnt down, or he's standing in front of that fire that, obviously must have happened whenever the temple went down, or whatever Ben Solo did after that evening. You know what I mean? because in The Force Awakens it was definitely a fire. I don't know if it was so much in The Last Jedi, but like the next symbolism of fire is the most beautiful, and you might not think about it. When the Force tree catches on fire because of Yoda, it's like it shows this painting of like, I don't know, rebirth or some sort of like realization. Like there's always a bigger step. You know, it's kind of a.
Well, it's fire is cleansing, correct? You know,
yeah.
It's almost it is that in real life, but also, you know, it's cleansing. It's got almost like a. There's this analogy in I think it's like the Bible kind of talks about. I'm not trying to be all like spiritual here.
No,
but let me preach. No, about being refined by the fire to be gold. Like, you know, gold. When you refine gold, you're burning away the impurities, so it comes up.
Yes.
So, and it's almost like fire is. It's taking these characters to where they need to go.
Definitely.
It's almost like you talk about what you're talking about with Luke's journey with his aunt and uncle. It pushes him towards that fire. Pushes him towards going with Obi-Wan. The tree with Yoda. It pushes him
forget the past.
To actually, like, no, I've got to step up. I've got to do something.
Yes.
And then you've got the cleansing of Anakin burning, or I believe it's just Vader's armor, because, you know, Force Ghost, but, you know, it's burning of that, the cleansing and all that, which would lead into Palpatine maybe being the one, like, cleanse the galaxy finally. Of the devil, essentially. He is the devil of the Star Wars universe.
Well, one thing I want to say before, like, we end up closing this thing out, it's like, not the whole thing, but this little convo we've got, like, especially with this idea of fire and, like, I don't know, it's weird. It's like you can sit there and kind of take a step back and think about what could this mean, but, like, you got to realize the prequels was Anakin's rising, okay? Then the original trilogy is Anakin's in charge and what the mistakes he might have made, and then the consequences is what the outcome of that is what the sequel trilogy has been. Now, I just said Anakin, but if you really think about it, it's Palpatine being the one that influences the sequences, the prequels. The outcome is, the actual ruling is during the original trilogy, and then the outcome of it is what he did to the Skywalkers and
the
how
fallout,
he manipulated the Skywalkers. Yeah, and maybe Rey being this, you know, darkness rises in light to meet it. That light to meet it's not. Palpatine probably didn't expect it. I don't know, and
I love that,
that's where that
so much. That gets me so geeked.
Well, where that trailer gets me interesting, it's like you're damn it, I literally have it written down. You're meeting. You go. Long have I awaited, and now you are coming together. This will be your undoing. Coming together will be is your undoing. It's like
I'm just getting real geeked to hear Rey talk to Palpatine. I
know.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I haven't thought of that. That's going to be amazing.
It's like, because she's so, like, what I love about Rey, and we're getting into different stories now, so I got to be quick.
It's okay. That's okay.
But, like, what's so cool about Rey is you saw in The Last Jedi, and I heard a lot of my friends' hangups were like, one of my friends had a hangup where he was like, you know, they had that whole thing about, like, Luke was so concerned she went straight to the dark side. And hesitate. And he was like, but they never brought it up again. But I'm like, the whole point of that to me was Rey's not tempted by that kind of stuff. That shows that she is the light, literally, right?
Rey, a ray of light.
Meet the darkness.
Yes.
She's like, she can go and touch it, look at it, hold it, and go, no, that's not for me. And
exactly.
And that is what you need to finally confront the ultimate evil of Palpatine and rid us of it once and for all. So,
well,
that's awesome.
Get off my soapbox.
No. No, Pete. Did you want to add anything to that in particular?
No, there's not much I can add to that. I'm getting more and more psyched for episode 9 than I thought I could be talking about episode 1. This is amazing.
It's so crazy,
Well,
and that's what this Bombad buildup is for, guys.
Well, one thing I want to close on, and I don't know if anyone's had the opportunity to watch it. I know Jerry was there with me. We were there when we saw it. Pete, if you haven't, treat yourself to it. But there is David S. Collins did the music of the Phantom Menace, and he breaks down at Celebration. He breaks down the Palpatine theme hidden in the what's the name of the song at the end of the Phantom Menace, Jerry?
It's Augie's Municipal Band.
Yes.
It's like, yay, let's have a parade. My neighbor did not, who watched with me, Devin. Shout out to my neighbor Devin. He was he was actually having a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun that night. But I said, they had me. The chat had me wait.
Yes.
Because it came up early in the movie that music has a significance. And don't tell him until it gets to it. And so I said, okay. I said, think Palpatine's theme, think the Emperor's theme.
Yeah.
It just, he was like, whoa. It's pretty sadistic, right? It's like,
it is.
We won. The bad guy's dead.
But that one ending scene paints one little picture for me. It shows R2 and it shows Obi-Wan and it shows Anakin and he smiles at Padme, which I don't know if is implying anything, but we know later in the line it's a much bigger thing than that, and the little boy ends up becoming a man.
That's a 10-year-old with some game right there.
Exactly. But the coolest thing is, before it cuts to Boss Nass at the very end, it actually cuts to Palpatine smiling. It's kind of crazy because George has been painting this picture slowly, that Palpatine's this big. I mean, he's, this is a big deal. So that's where pretty much it ends right there, and it has the full shot that parallels A New Hope, that parallels almost every Star Wars ending just A New Hope, and it parallels Return of the Jedi, and it kind of parallels another thing with The Last Jedi too. But The Last Jedi's ending shot was not that. It was
kind of a group shot. Yeah.
Right.
But, Palpatine is probably smiling because he's like, I kind of like this tune. I think I'm going to use it later.
That's catchy.
It is so catchy, but it could be a little bit catchier. No, catch me when I fall. Put a
little pizzazz in it, a little pizzazz.
But that kind of closes out this big discussion. Some things I wanted to bring up to y'all, just as big story threads that are not answered in this movie, and I'll go over one of them right now. The prophecy of the Chosen One was never mentioned in the original trilogy, and they keep throwing in this entire movie, and I want to know what y'all think particularly of that. Pete, do you have any, the Chosen One thing is something I've also debated a lot in my head when I'm driving, but do you ever really think about what that could imply and what that might mean?
Why it was only brought up in the prequels and not at all in the...
Well, not even just that, just what... in the prophecy to bring balance to the Force, but it's why did they think Anakin would be the one? Was it because he was immaculately concepted, or was it because I don't know? It's why wouldn't someone else do it besides just Anakin? I don't know. What?
Well, a lot of it could be the fact that Qui-Gon was so focused on the Force. He was a and he believed that they ended up. He looked at a sidetrack of a mission as not just the ship broke down, we have to go get it fixed, as why did we do this? And then that brought to him the fact that he believed that, I found this virgins in the Force, and then when Shmi said there was no father, and his midichlorian count was off the charts, which I don't even want to talk about midichlorians, but but I mean, it's all part of the story, and so I think it was brought up then, and then I think the reason it wasn't brought up at all in the original trilogy was it didn't fit in the story. It didn't matter, and
it didn't.
Because I think, first of all, Obi-Wan lies to Luke, or from a certain point of view, to get him to do what he feels he needs to do somehow, and maybe we'll learn this in the Obi-Wan series as to why he believed that Luke had a role in taking down Vader and what happened with that. We never really know why he believes that needs to happen. So that's the one thing that I want to learn from the Obi-Wan story. But I think, I think maybe they also saw that when Anakin knew that he was the chosen one, if you tell that to Luke at that point, that he has to go do whatever it is, whether he's the chosen one or his father was the chosen one or whatever, it's a heavier burden to bear. It's hard enough to say, by the way,
Wow.
Vader was your father, and now you got to go take him down.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, he was the chosen one created by the Force. Good luck with that. And I hope you don't
Have
screw
fun,
it up.
kid.
And you're a product of that too, which is kind of
That's right.
cool.
Yeah, you're in the lineage. Yeah.
And to think that Ben is also a product of that is like, if that's the case, and if the Force immaculately concepted, or if Palpatine had some involvement, I mean, what a better way to me to make that manipulation turn back around if he was like, yeah, no, I created Anakin, and you're the product of my creation,
and
I've been Vader the whole time through the mask. It did just really destroy Ben Solo as a character.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, to think that power has not gotten weaker through the generations since Anakin, but it has only gotten, like Luke says, he'd never seen anything as powerful as Rey since before, like,
yes,
and Solo.
Yes.
Think like I don't know. It's not to get into power ratings and all that stuff. This isn't a video game or Dragon Ball Z or anything. But,
yeah.
But I have the prophecy pulled up now, gentlemen. If you would like me.
Oh, please, yeah.
That's one cool
do.
thing is we actually now have the prophecy itself. There's several parts to it, but here's the main prophecy that they kind of talk about in the book Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. Check it out. Claudia Gray is like she's one of the best authors we have writing Star Wars material these days, so check that out for sure. Anyway, the prophecy reads, "Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless." Ooh, that's a little...
Oof, yeah.
There's a lot there. "The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine." There's so much in this.
Whoa.
"And one shall come, born of no father, and through him ultimate balance in the Force will be restored."
Wow.
Right?
Wow. And that really can do a lot of damage. Like, if you think about like that, just what that means, the implications for that.
Oh, so many
past, what did
nerd
it say?
minds
The
exploded
past-
when they
read that
read
again,
this, man.
What was the beginning? The past and the future?
Okay, let's see. "When the Force itself sickens," which is an interesting phrase, "the past and future must split and combine," which, again, this is written in the sequel trilogy era, man. I think they're really kind of there's a lot of stuff in this.
Well,
But it says they must past and future must split and combine. "A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored." "The danger of the past is not in the past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire." How much of this are we?
Palpatine.
9.
I mean,
Holy cow. And where was this? This was written...
This was in Master and Apprentice. Master and Apprentice came out the beginning of this year.
Oh, okay. This is Master and Apprentice.
Takes
Okay,
place before, I think about 5 or 10 years before. It's about 8 years before Phantom Menace,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
okay. Well,
A lot in that. That's a great read if you guys haven't read it.
Well, one funny thing you say, and it immediately, like right as you started reading it, I'm like, I have to pull it up. There was that Journal of the Wills poem that Alan D. Foster had, was the epilogue to The Force Awakens. Do you remember this? And I'll read it to y'all because it parallels it a lot. It says, "First comes the day, then comes the night. After the darkness shines through the light. The difference, they say, is only made right by the resolving of gray through refined Jedi sight." It's kind of, in its own way, it has a very similar feel. It's like, it's I don't know. It's like, what could all this mean, especially with the Chosen One theory and how this story is going to wrap up? I don't know.
You really want to have your mind blown? The next prophecy is, "He who learns to conquer death will through his greatest student live again."
Say it again. Say it again.
"He who learns to conquer death will through his greatest student live again."
Oh.
And I'm going to drop my mic. Good night, everybody.
Is
It's
that
been
like
good.
Luke?
Mwah, mwah, kisses. All right.
What could that mean, though? Wait. So one more time, just so I can.
One more
break it down.
time. We should probably. Maybe this can lead us into a little bit of like the state of. Well, we've talked a lot about Palpatine, but we'll just leave it at this, "He who learns to conquer death will."
Okay, he who learns.
Student. Yes, sorry.
So no, I just want to. He who learns to conquer death. So that means like, would that mean?
Where have we
Palpatine, or
heard
would
that before?
Yeah, I guess you're right. To conquer death.
Will, through his greatest student, live again. Not forever, live again.
Oh my
Wow.
god!
Defying death and resurrection.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, now we're getting real philosophical. I don't know,
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Anyway,
That's crazy.
I'm sorry, I pulled up an article with all of those prophecies in it. I forgot
Wow.
what those things are. So,
Well, one thing I want to close on, and especially I have this one section written, and if y'all want to, I already kind of brought it up, except for one thing. I wrote, "What will the Rise of Skywalker answer?" And there's one thing I wanted to bring up, just from a storytelling perspective, just to kind of close that. It's not as deep as what we just discussed, but we obviously 3PO's involvement with this final film is much more significant than we thought. And
Right.
if you don't know this, give it a rewatch. And I hopefully after listening to this, you're going to be like, man, I got to go put on the Phantom Menace, because there's one shot. And it's the only POV point of view shot in this entire saga. And it's going to be 3PO looking directly at Anakin, walking around Anakin's bedroom. And he's like, it's like, look, 3PO, you better take care of my mom because you know this. And it's the only shot where it's almost like an 80s movie. Someone's talking directly to the camera and the camera's moving. It's very Ferris Bueller. And it's moving back and forth. And I mean, we obviously know at some point C-3PO's memories are going to play into this. Now, not to say you will see this scene exactly or they will show a clip of this scene, but it's the only POV shot, and it's dealing with 3PO giving that POV shot. So
if they show some memories from his mind, we could see that.
Yes,
and that would be that would be wild if we saw that.
Exactly.
this movie's going to destroy us, guys.
I think you're right.
I have to
interesting
warn-
though that
Yeah.
it's interesting that so much of this stuff from episode 1 is the kind of stuff that's triggering these this desire to see 9, right?
Yeah.
We're just having this conversation. So
Well,
I think it's gonna
they've
be-
been saying, they're tying. We're going to tie all these threads together. This is in a nice bow by the time we're done with it. So,
well, I think it's the two prequels that might actually do more damage than not in a bad way, but do more like story heavy hitting than any of the originals and kind of the sequels is Revenge of the Sith and the Phantom Menace. I mean, these are like story-wise and what they set up is pretty heavy hitting.
they're dense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They are so
it's
dense
foundational.
and it really is, and I am just elated, and I cannot wait to actually listen back to this later. This was such a great conversation. I mean, I can't thank y'all enough for making this happen. Like
this has been a blast.
I am so excited for everyone to listen in on this. But
You're welcome.
yeah, no,
You're welcome.
You're welcome. No, but in all seriousness, guys, we've been going on for about an hour and 50 minutes now, and I don't know if there's anything else you want to close with, or if your final statements have been made. But I think the Phantom Menace is, like Jerry said, a lot more foundational and a lot bigger of a story than you remember. Especially if you watch it from a particular lens.
Right. All I've really got to say is just that this is my favorite prequel. Like it's still it brings back the most nostalgia. It feels very connected to the originals for me, and then even the other two. And maybe that's the way the film, the cinematography looks.
Yeah.
But just I don't know. It just there's something about it. It just feels it feels like a timeless story.
It does.
That is just I don't know. It's the opening chapter, and
it is.
It honestly, guys, I still think it's got a lot in there to hook you. So
it does. Every saga has a beginning. Every saga has a beginning.
There we go. Yeah, we'll start. Yeah, we're gonna start say those catchphrases. Every saga has a beginning. And just wait. It will live on forever. There you go.
Oh man, that's so dense. No, Pete, if anything you want to just close out with, man.
No, I can't recommend enough for people to follow along with you guys and watch these movies again, because as I said before, my daughter and I have been planning and have watched. We've watched the first 3, and we're continuing our journey. But it definitely makes connections that you may or may not have been prepared to think about. And this show that you guys are doing is so important, and such a great time and a great way to be reminded of these subtleties. I can't wait to listen to Attack of the Clones. So hopefully you guys can get that out of the basement of my favorite Star Wars films.
Hey, we're going to dig for all the gold.
I'm sure. I'll bet there's things in there. Well, I mean, you have all the dream sequences, and there's so much great stuff there. So, yeah, so I'm. Well, no, that's actually Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, maybe there's nothing good in Attack of the. That'll be like a 10-minute show. I'm kidding, of course. I'm kidding.
You're gonna have a fun time listening to that episode for sure. If not, because we're gonna have to get the bleep button ready because we're Alice and Laura. I'm just kidding. Man. We're good.
Yeah. No, but I thank you very much for having me on to do this, because it's reawakened. There's been an awakening. I don't know if you felt it or not.
I'm so psyched for that. Anyway,
no. Hopefully this episode has made you want to taste more of what this series is going to be, not just for Pete, but for our listeners around. And we have been working hard and writing a lot of notes. And our next recording is actually 2 nights from now, so I'm gonna have to watch Attack of the Clones and kind of take it in tomorrow.
Yeah,
night.
we're not gonna have as much time to kind of marinate in the delicious Attack of the Clones. Is sad, but I think there is a lot to it. So I don't know. We'll have to try to get it.
See.
Possibly can. So
they might bring some pretty cool tidbits in, but. Pete, we can't thank you enough for being a part of this first journey and this step into a larger world, because you were who you were when this stuff was coming out, and what you did, around it is just such an interesting thing. And if y'all haven't, give Pete's a fan novel a read. I downloaded it. I read it through the first couple of pages of it.
Got to crack that thing open, man.
No, I think once the Rise of Skywalker happens and there's not as much going on, I think I'm going to really come to sit down and just have a day.
My biggest fear. Yeah, my biggest fear is that after Rise of Skywalker comes out, all of my theories that are in my version of the book are going to be totally shot to hell.
And that's going to be okay. Especially this episode. It might not mean as much, but hopefully listening now, you're like hyped up to see what's going to happen.
Oh, man. Without a doubt. This has been so much fun.
But thank you so much, Pete, man. And we'll hopefully, maybe after the Rise of Skywalker comes out, we'll have I was hoping we'd do some sort of little mini episode where we have you on for 15, 20 minutes. We talk about what you thought of it, then have some more people on just to kind of,
we want to do like a round table kind of thing when that comes.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, all of us podcasters getting together, like we're getting around a table at IHOP and like going super nerdy. So.
Well, hit me up, guys. You can count on me. I'd be happy to join you anytime.
Absolutely. Hey, and speaking of which, Pete, where can they find you? Where can people hit you up?
Well, this is going to drop on Tuesday. You can follow me on ATGcast on Twitter at ATGcast, or you can go to my website, atgcast.com. And you guys are the first show that I'm going to get to say this on. I am starting a second show. It's going to be a live show with Dave Amilati from Beyond the Blast Doors. It's going to air every Friday night at 10 o'clock, and we're going to take on sort of a reaction and recap live show for all the Disney Plus stuff. Yes. And we're going to invite people to join us in the show, both in the chats and online. It's going to be like a recap every Friday night at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. 9 o'clock Central every Friday. Once when our first one's going to be November 8th, so join us that night. Yes. And we go from there every week.
That is exciting, man. Yeah,
dude, Dave's awesome. David is a great dude. We were actually texting the other day. We met at Celebration, and that is awesome. That is fantastic, Pete. Congratulations, man.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get with that. Yeah, they're great people. Dave's a great guy, and I had Dave on my show, and I've been on his show a couple times, and we seem to have a pretty good sort of way of going about things. So I'm excited to work with him. Yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
That is amazing. Hey, there you go, guys. Go get ready for that for sure, because wow, that is exciing, Pete. Yeah, that's
you'll see the Bombadcast
an awesome
in the chat.
Man.
Yeah, so you'll be able to follow us at Streaming Star Wars. It's going to be called Streaming Star Wars. The Twitter is at Streaming SW. So follow us there, and it's going to be shown on the Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel, and then we're going to take the audio and put it into the Around the Galaxy feed every week. So if you missed the show, you can listen to it.
Fantastic. Dude. That's great, because I used to be a huge Walking Dead fan, and I always needed like that decompression with people.
Yeah, that's where we're going for. We want to get everybody in the room and have us all like, oh my God, what just happened? So,
that is amazing.
I think in The Mandalorian, and I don't know if you had heard it, but we kind of discussed a couple weeks back the leak that Jason had put out there. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but
yeah,
you know which one I'm talking about, right?
I don't. I've spoken to a few people, so there's a couple leaks that I've heard that I just make like a show that at the level I was expecting it to be is now blown up. It's going to be so much better than I thought. So
yeah.
Oh man, some interesting things that may occur. But anyway, y'all, this was amazing. I can't thank you both enough for this honor. And Jerry, where can the wonderful people find you?
Well, guys, if you want to, see my ramblings and stuff, I go on rants and different kind of things on Twitter at the Canon Junkie. I'm Canon Junkie, on there right now. I think I'm still Canon Junkie's Halloween pun name. But you know what, guys? Follow me there at the Canon Junkie. Follow us at the Bombadcast. We have a Facebook group. If you're on there, we will give a little bit of
exclusivity
news there first and stuff. We want to kind of build that up as more of a community, and so go there to join. It's the Bombad fam, a Bombadcast official group. So look for us on there on Facebook. Again, with your great grandparents and your uncles who learn to use the computer. And guys, just follow us around, man. We really appreciate all that you guys do for us. And also, subscribe to us on YouTube if you don't, because we dropped some trailer reactions and stuff on there. And we actually just crossed, by the time you listen to this, 1,000 subscribers.
Crazy.
Yes, I was very proud of you guys. Good job. That was
Thank
quick.
you. Yeah, I can't believe that it's...
I'm not gonna lie. If I can, I'll tell you the statistics later. But it sounds a little ignorant, but it's almost overnight. Like, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy. It's great.
Probably 5 nights, but it's crazy how much we got, and the trailer reaction's really blown up. But
that is all because of you guys too. So
yes, also true.
If you're listening to this, still go support positive Star Wars content. Be a Neil Lowry, be an Anthony Rule Farm Boy, be a person like that, and shout out people who make positive Star Wars content.
Great.
We only reach this stuff because you guys make it happen. So
I gotta plug one more thing before we sign off. We've got some Bombad shirts out, y'all. Go check the Bombad.
I can't believe we completely forgot about that.
Yeah, so
not only that, but you can put us on a tiny poster big enough to cover up that hole in your wall you're trying to. You can get one of those. You can slap us on a pillow and sleep weird.
Yep.
Me, Scotty, and Jar Jar's faces on your couch. We can get mugs. We've got phone cases. Whatever.
Stickers.
Desire. The Bombad swag store on TeePublic. Yes.
It's there.
I can't believe I forgot.
No, dude, we've ordered shirts. I ordered Kitty a shirt. I ordered 5 stickers. I ordered what else did I order? I think I spent 70
Someone ordered
or 80
some
bucks.
pins. Did you order some pins too?
Some pins. I ordered some
nice.
pins. Yeah, I ordered some pins. So with that being said, y'all, go check it out. It's under the I'm pretty sure it's on the Bombad. It's pinned tweet.
I've got a pin tweet on there, and we'll let you know when there are some sales and stuff going on.
And some new stuff, possibly. But, you can find me at the Scotty J Rowe on Twitter, or the Scott J Rowe, and I'm Scotty J Rowe on there. Stay tuned. We've got so much more coming in the future, and maybe even Jerry and I will do some quick 30-minute reactions to the Mandalorian trailer, or you'll see us in the live stream with Pete and Dave, which would be amazing. But
I can't wait to have you guys.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just so giddy for the future. But anyway,
there's a lot of we're stepping on the gas, guys, and Lucasfilm is too, man. We're not letting off the gas till we get
no kidding.
Rise of Skywalker, man.
No.
Get ready. Buckle in, guys.
You might see a little bit of a break period for Jerry and I after that, because it's a lot.
we might take a break in the holidays. So
but
it's
anyway,
hard to keep up.
It is. But thanks again, Pete. Man, we'll see you in the near future, bud.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me. This was a ton of fun.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Jerry, what should the good people at home do?
You should go slap our faces on a pillow, and you should also stay bombad.